today's message, choosing what is better. What is better? Worry or worship? Worry or worship? You see, the person that I'm going to talk about today, there's actually two ladies, two sisters that I'm going to talk about, and Jesus. But Mary has chosen what is better. She chose what was best. She didn't want second best. She wanted what was best. She didn't want plan B. She wanted plan A. So as we're thinking about God and God's call upon our lives today, we have a God who wants to give us what is best. Do you believe that today, or do you believe that we have a God who kind of hoards things and a God who's just kind of stingy, a God who withholds things? I mean, that was the lie that was pitched in the Garden of Eden, right? We have a God who doesn't want you to take of this tree because the day that you do, you're going to be like God. God's intimidated by you. Like, this is what they were hearing. And it's like, God said, of all the trees in the garden, you can eat of all the trees. Just stay away from one. The day that you go to that tree is the day that you die, right? Going back to this because it's going to kind of get us to where we need to go. We have a God who's giving. I think God has proven that to us over and over and over and over again. In fact, there's a verse that says, he withholds no good thing from those who he loves. Think about it, parents. Think about the kind of parent you are. I mean, you want your son or daughter, you want their life to be better than yours. You want to give them things that you never had. You're going to make sacrifices because you love them. I mean, what father, when his son says, Dad, can I have a fish? Is going to say, no, you can eat this stone. That's biblical. In fact, Jesus told the story. He said, you're not going to do that. And your son asked for bread, you're not going to give him a stone. Asked for fish, you're not going to give him a snake, a scorpion. You're not going to do that. I mean, we laugh about it because it's just it's such a crazy idea. We as parents would never think about doing anything that's going to harm our kids or hurt our kids. Be praying for Daniel. He's without his boy and his wife for another couple weeks. Been thinking about you guys and praying for you. I mean, you just love your son. God loved his son so much. But he loved us so much that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but will have everlasting life. So what we learn about God is we have a God who's very generous and a God who gives. He doesn't withhold. He gives his very best. But there are some who would like to just settle. Some who would like to just live beneath their privilege. I'm a king's kid. Those of you. You're a prince. You're king's kid. Princess, 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 princess. You receive that today? You are God's kid. So live like it. You know, expect the very, very best. Don't just say, I'm going to settle for a rock. First of all, God's not going to give you a rock. He's not. He's going to give you the very, very best. That's being held out. That's being made available for you and for me. And I want to start by saying, Mary chose what was better. Choosing what is better. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way in the book of Luke, chapter 10, if you are following along with us, we'll also put it up on the screen for you. Luke chapter 10, 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Now, she had a sister called Mary. Mary and Martha, they're sisters. Good friends with Jesus. Jesus spent a lot of time with them. In fact, later we learn when their brother died, Lazarus, when he died, Jesus wept. That's the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. You just learned a new verse today. Jesus wept. Well, if I can learn that, it's 2 words. Jesus wept. He cried. Kind of opens up a window. We can kind of see into his heart. Had a heart for people, being with people, loving people. Loved this family. This brother and 2 sisters. Loved these people. Was with them all the time. So he comes over to their house, and Martha opens up the door. Mary is sitting at his feet during the visit, listening to what he had to say, which is, by the way, one of the greatest gifts that you can offer to people. We offer people hospitality, but the gift of listening. Listening, actually listening to them when they're talking, looking at them and listening. Maybe even repeating back what you think you hear them saying. It's important. Sometimes we're just not listening. We heard, but we're not listening, right? My wife's called me out a few times in my life. Quizzed me. I heard you. Busy doing that. I heard you. What did I just say? And she probably said like 10 or 15 words, and I get like 2 or 3 of them right. You know, like every other. He's like, you weren't listening. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry. Let me just get still and let me look at you. It's the greatest gift you can give somebody to, for people to actually feel like they. Maybe you don't agree with what they said, but I heard you. I heard what you said. So Mary is at the feet of Jesus, listening, clinging to every word that he says. Martha, on the other hand, her sister, Mary's sister Martha, is distracted. Key word, distracted. How many times do we get distracted in our lives? Anybody ADD in here? And proud of it? You're going all over the place, right? You're like ricocheting off the wall. That can sometimes be me. I can sometimes get sidetracked. I've proven that sometimes when I'm preaching. Like I'll start talking about something, and almost on the bank story, I almost lost it today. Almost lost why I went there, why I went to the bank. Account change. There was a bigger reason, But I sometimes like get distracted, and I go over here, and or I'm doing this, and this is probably what's best, but I get taken out because I go over here or take a phone call or thinking about something else. My head isn't really fully in it. And that's what's happening here. Martha's distracted. And you know why she's distracted? It says that she's distracted because of all the preparations that had to be made. You guys operate with a to-do list? These are things that have to be done. Feed the cat. Better feed that kitty. Take out the dog. Right? Pick up clothes. Say they're at the laundromat. If I don't pick them up today, they'll be there tomorrow. Got to go to the bank. Got to pay this bill. Got to pick up the kids from daycare. I mean, you have this to-do list, these priorities, some things that, truth be told, don't really have to be done right now. In your mind, maybe they do, but they don't really. The world isn't going to just like disappear because you didn't get it done today. Things aren't going to fall apart, but there are some things that you have to do today, right? You have to get up and you have to get ready for work, and you need to get to work, or if you don't, you're not going to have a job tomorrow. So here in this story, I wasn't there, but I kind of believe that Martha has put this expectation on herself, this pressure on herself, which we sometimes do. We put pressure on ourselves, which we don't need to do, but we do. We put pressure on ourselves. I have to do this. You don't. You're choosing to do that. You don't have to do. She had preparations that she says, these preparations had to be done, had to be made. I have a guest in my home. and it has to just be perfect, right? Now, when we spent time with our friends last week, we went over and had an incredible time. And I told you that the food, I'm not lying, the food was incredible. But even more incredible than the food was having the opportunity to spend time with friends and the mutual edification and the stories and talking and the sharing life. Right? There just has to be this dessert. What are those things called again? Mochi ice cream. I've been doing mochi every day. Still in my diet, but so good, right? I would vouch to say, like we could have had the time that we had would have been just as good if we didn't have that ice cream. Would have been. I was so glad we had it. And I'm not complaining. I had like 3 or 4. I loved it. But you see, Martha is neglecting her guest while she's making all the preparation. Her sister is entertaining. Her sister is listening. Her sister is offering the gift of hospitality. Well, for Martha, it looks differently. It's, I'm in the kitchen. I have to make food. Now, she's not condemned. She's not shamed. She's not judged because this is what it's her response to when she starts complaining about what people that do stuff, a lot of things, and they have to tell you about everything that they've done. And they complain because other people aren't helping them. They feel like they're doing it all alone. Yeah, anybody have the Martha syndrome? Sometimes, yeah. It's a gift. You have the spiritual gift of serving, but the bad side of that sometimes is that you can get a little hostile, a little judgmental, a little critical of others when they're not doing what you're doing. Not their gift, but God gives us the grace to do things sometimes outside of our gift mix. But, right here, it's obvious that, that Martha probably has the gift of service. I mean, she's a servant, she's serving, but she's complaining about it. And so you see this later on here in the story. She's distracted, first of all, by all the preparations that in her mind had to be made. And she comes to Jesus and she says to him, "Don't you care?" She starts calling out her guest. "Don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself?" Not a good way to make a guest feel comfortable, right? "Jane, don't you care? Brewing this tea all by myself, don't you care?" Jesus is like, "I just stopped by." Like that's just an awkward moment. I think that had to be a really awkward moment. Jesus is in the house. He's having this conversation with Mary in the other room. He's just kind of chilling, hanging out. And Martha just comes in, got her hands on her hip. I can just see her right now. Sweat on her brow, and she's flour all over the place, just frustrated. "Don't you care? I'm doing this all alone. I'm all by myself. I'm not going to finish by the time you leave if I don't have help." Jesus says to her, he's like, "Martha, Martha, you are worried. You are worried and upset." I wonder how true that is about us. Somebody needs to hear this. You're worried. You're upset about a lot of things. And I just want to tell you today, worry, being upset about things, that it's not going to make the food in the kitchen. It's not going to make it done because you worried about it. How many of you have seen in your life, because you've committed yourself to worry, being upset, You've noticed that things have been a lot better since you worried about them. Stayed up all night. I lost a whole night of sleep, but man, got some good worrying. Good worrying. Because I just stayed up all night. The situation's still the same. Experts, health care professionals will tell us that worry, what that does to our body, if we could just understand and know what that does to our bodies, when we decide that we're going to strap it, we're going to take it on, we're going to worry about it. Just so much disease is linked to it. And Jesus says, you know what, you are worried and you're upset about a lot of things. Not just what's happening or not happening in the kitchen. You're worried and you're upset about a lot of things. But few things are needed. Few things are needed. Or indeed, Jesus says, only one thing is needed. So let's talk about the one thing that's needed. Jesus says only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away. It will not be taken away from her. She has chosen what's better. She's chosen to just relax. She's chosen just to be still. She's chosen to be with me, her guest. She's made me feel at home. She's welcomed me. She's listening to me. What a great gift you can give to your company. Listening. This is a true story. This happened. This isn't a parable. Jesus often taught in parables, stories. You're like, yeah, well, the story about it was parable. Yeah, he gave illustrations. He gave stories. He gave parables. This was a true story. These people were real people. Sisters. He was good friends with them. One opened up the door of her home. If you're taking notes, that's number one. One opened, because I want you to see the difference between both sisters. One opened the door of her home. The other one opened the door of her heart. There's a verse in the book of Revelation that says, behold, I stand at the door, knock. If anyone hears that knock and opens up the door, I will come in. This is talking about Jesus standing at the door. Jesus is a gentleman. He's not going to knock your door down. Not going to do it. He knocks. And if you hear the knock and you open up the door, you invite him to come in. That's what it means to be a Christian. That's what it means to be saved. That's what it means to be born again. All this terminology that's out there that sometimes hasn't been explained to us. He's saying, I'm at the door of your heart, knocking. Want to come in, want to live in your life. If you open up the door, I'll come in. So he knocks on this physical door. One sister opened up the door, invited him in. The other one said, I'm going to open up my heart. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hear you. I'm going to sit at your feet. I'm going to offer you the gift of hospitality and the gift of listening. It's not like you wouldn't do this to company. You wouldn't just open up the door and say, later, I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything. I'm going to be cooking something up. You might do that in college with your college buddies, but if you're having company over, you're going to kind of set the stage. You're going to have it ready, right? Come over to my house. I'm going to have it ready for you. I'm going to try to get it clean. I'm going to try to, give you a warm welcome. I'm going to invite you in. I'm going to do what you need to do when you come into my house. You don't have to feel weird about asking to use my bathroom. We always ask that question, and it's a hard question to ask people. Are people going to say, no, you can't use my bathroom? But we're going to say, come on in, man. Make yourself at home. Up on the couch if you want to. Adjust the heat. Do what you need to do to feel comfortable. This isn't about me. This is about you. You're my guest, and I want to make sure that you have a really good time when you're in my presence. So there's a big difference here. One who's just, busy, thinking that she really understands the guest and knows what the guest needs or what the guest wants. But who better understands and knows what the guest needs or what the guest wants than the person who's like in the presence of the guest, like actually listening to what the guest is saying? And that's what Mary is doing. Number two is one sat at his feet and delighted in her guest, while the other stood on her feet, distracted by preparations that had to be made. Have you ever read Charles Hummel, his work, Tyranny of the Urgent? You ever read that? A couple of you are nodding, saying that you have. We have a couple quotes that we might put up for you. The greatest danger is letting the urgent things crowd out the important. Read a story years ago. I didn't even know I was going to share it today. I'm not going to share it in entirety, but I'm going to just give you the point, the gist. A real successful businessman, father, decides that he's going to take he's put aside for this day important things. Making money, business meetings, phone calls, computer, he's put it all to the side so that he can take his son fishing. He journals. And later, someone would go through his journal, I want to say it was his son, and would read, went fishing with Johnny, wasted. And I remember reading that, and that just, as a father, it just really, because we're fathers, and nothing greater than being kids, right? It really disturbed me and really bothered me that this rich professional, that this business person would think that all these other priorities, all these other things that have to get done could even be close, could even measure up to this opportunity, unique opportunity of spending a little time with your son. And so it made me think of that as I was thinking about, the greatest danger is letting the urgent things crowd out the important. But the root of all sin is self-sufficiency, independence from the rule of God. When we fail to wait carefully for God's guidance and strength, we are saying with our actions, if not with our words, that we do not need him. How much of our service is actually going it alone? One sat at his feet, delighted in her. The other stood on her feet, distracted by preparation. Allowing the urgent thing to crowd out what was most. The third thing I wrote down for us to consider is that one prepared food for her, while the other one prepared her heart. I think it's important that as we show up here on Sunday morning, this is our big day. This is apex of this is it. Coming together as a faith family, each other, strengthening iron, sharpening iron. It's important. But the preparation of your heart, a few minutes, should happen long before 9:30. We're talking about, as you're going through your week and living your Saturday night, and as just being in a spirit of prayer, thinking about the service, praying for the service, praying for you, praying for us, praying for me, praying, God, what is it that you want to speak into me? I'm ready to receive whatever it is that you want to say. Prepare my heart. Lord, prepare my heart. I want my heart to just be fertile soil. I just want to be able to receive whatever it is. And we see one sister's preparing food. Not that that's a bad thing. We all need to eat. I get it. But one is just so intent, realizing that I am spending time with the bread of life. In fact, Jesus made reference, and he said, I have food that you know nothing about. Go to the store when we weren't looking. What's he talking about? Jesus is saying, I'm the bread of life. No, I'm all you need. Like, be thirsty for me. You drink from this well, you're going to be about this weeks back. You're going to be thirsty again. Nothing's going to satisfy like. So, one prepared food for her guest, the other prepared her heart for a guest. Number 4, one was busy. One was busy and one was still. One was busy, one was still. I think you need to maybe just take a minute on this one. Just think about this. Let this kind of just sink in. It says in Psalm 46:10, he says, be still and know. That's hard for some of us, isn't it? Do we equate being still to being non-productive? I mean, I think Mary might say that, or Martha might say that about her sister. Here I am running all over the kitchen. I have a lot to get done, preparations that have to be made. We have a guest here, we have to feed him. And you're sitting there doing nothing. Somehow that lie that happened 2,000 years ago, and if we go even further back to the garden, because I reference the garden a lot, don't I? They thought, you're not good. They heard, you're not good enough. You could be good enough. So they kicked into this works kind of theology. I'm good enough, even though God said I'm very good, if I'm just good enough, if I just work harder. We're not saved by our works. We're saved by grace through faith, right? But we have this idea in our minds that we just have to do something. So we become a people who are all about do good, do good. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again as we're getting ready to kick off this new day. Part of our mission is a part of our vision. We want people to come here. Saw the sign out front, place to be. Place to be. Not only is this is the place to be in town, this is the place to be, it's the place to be. Where you can just be. You can just be the person that God's created. You don't have to do. You see, out of your being, just being in his presence, is going to come some really good days because you've been with him. So Mary sitting there, some people would see that as, man, I wish she would just up her butt, do something, help. He's at the feet, receiving action, receiving. Can you imagine what's going to flow out of that? Out of her being in the presence of Christ? So be careful. Let's suspend judgment, because there's a lot of times there's things that are happening behind the scenes that we know nothing about, things that are happening in people's lives. We don't have everybody's calendar on our phone. Like, it's hard enough for me to keep track of me. I can't keep track of everybody else. I got enough problems of my own trying to figure out my life is a full-time, then some job God gave me, help me figure it out, because but she's not being not. We equate being still to being. Once I've done all this stuff that's on my to-do list, then I will know that I've been a productive member of society. And I'll feel good, and I'll be able to go to bed. Because look at all that I did today. And we treat our spirituality, we treat our relationship with God like a to-do list. Right? Devos, church. Right? And it's just check, 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 check. And it becomes a list. It becomes rules. It becomes regulation. And it's all about. So if you don't hear anything I say today, it's about being. We don't do to be, and out of our being comes some really good doing, some really good stuff. I'm winding down. One was distracted. And you can take these real life people, we treat them like they're superheroes. Can't ever make any mistakes. We take these real life people who were real, who lived, who walked this planet, okay? And we say, Martha was distracted. You know, I'm distracted. There's times I'm distracted. Even harder not to be distracted. In 2019, we have cell phones. Just to look and see how much time we spend on, how much time did you spend this past week on your cell phone? Well, my life's on my cell phone. My computer's on my cell phone. If I'm sending you an email, it's on my phone. I don't have a home computer. So it's all, everything I do is on my old school, everything's done on my phone. Everything. But I can even get distracted on that. Admittedly so. I'll be driving down the road and, never happened when I had a Can-Am. I didn't even look at that phone. I didn't touch that phone. But there have been times that I've been driving down the road and I get a call. There have been times that I've been driving down the road and I take a glance. Not good. You cannot be distracted when you are behind a motor vehicle. Right? But we get distracted all the time. We get sidetracked off all the time. We chase all the time. Read the book. It's a friend of ours wrote a book, Don Miller. You know Don Miller? Blue Like Jazz. Read that book when you get a chance. I'll tell a story someday. Here I'll use his clips and story about carrot. Basically about this rabbit or something. Sexy carrot. Finally got it. Thought it's what he wanted. Ate it so quickly. Died. It has some good takeaways. Let's put it that way. But we see that in our lives, it's easy to get distracted and it's easy to chase. It's easy to go after things. I was driving my car down the road the other day and God just kind of flooded my mind with the story of Moses. And how Moses was just, could have easily been distracted. Growing up in the palace, having all this stuff. But it says that he chose, in the book, he chose to identify with the people of Israel instead of the Egyptians because he realized that pleasure, that in sin, that only lasts. He was playing for something that's being identified as a child of God and identifying with the family of God and pleasing God because that's eternal. That's forever. Not going to get distracted. Not going to get taken out of the race. We have an enemy who wants to distract you. It's in the book of Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. We're running a race, and it says that's why it's important that as we run this race, we fix our eyes on Jesus. Because there's a lot of things in the race that are going to trip you up, that are going to entangle you, that are going to snare you. And you know what? If you know anything about running, you know that if you're running, you look to your right, you look to your left, you look back, it's going to slow you down. That's why it says, your eyes on Jesus as you run. So one was distracted while the other one, and this is important, while the other one was dialed in. We need some of you today to just dial in, to really dial in, to really bring the focus in to the person of Christ. Been distracted, been running in all different kinds of directions, and she was attentive. Mary was attentive to what mattered. Remember the story in Matthew 14:25-31. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. And when the disciples saw Jesus walking on the lake, what did they say? They were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said. And they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. Take courage. It's I. Don't be afraid." It's me, guys. Don't be afraid. Peter says, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you, water." And Jesus said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, came toward Jesus. But when he, look at this, when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." The problem in the story, and we give Peter is one of the guys that we love to just kick under the bus and beat him up all the time. He denied the Lord, he walked on water, and he took his eyes off of Jesus, so he started to sink. You know what? All the other disciples were in the boat. None of them got out. Give the guy a little credit. I mean, he got out, right? He stepped into some dark, cold water, and he starts walking towards a ghost. And he begins to sink because he takes his eyes off of Jesus. But he got out of the boat. But he begins to sink because he's not looking at Jesus. So again, this just supports what we've been talking about today, how important it is to keep our eyes on Jesus, to look at Jesus, to be attentive to Jesus, to listen to Jesus. He says, if you love me, you're going to listen. You're going to keep my commandments, if you love me. So Jesus says to him, reaches out first his hand and catches Peter. He says, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Why did you doubt? The last point I want you to see is this: one worried and one worshiped. Don't let worry get in the way of your worship. What kind of worshipers is Jesus looking for? People who worship him in spirit and in truth, right? We read that in John 4. Well, we worry about a lot of things. And in fact, that's what he said to Martha. He said, "You are upset and you are worried about a lot of things." And you worrying about things, that's not going to help Mary get up and help you. You're worried and you're upset far beyond what's happening in this space today. You have a lot going on in your life. You are worried and upset, Jesus says, about many things. And they were friends. Martha was a good girl, no doubt. How many of you can identify with this morning? You're worried and you're upset about a lot of things. Be honest. Let's be honest, man. Your pastor's rolling change at the bank in public because he worried that his son isn't going to have lunch. It was a tough week. We have tough weeks. We all have tough weeks. It is. And some of this stuff, I'm going to just shoot it straight to you because I shoot it really, really straight. You know, some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I've created for my own self, for my own life. Not God's fault, not anybody else's fault. Look in the mirror. I've created it, right? Life would be a lot easier if I didn't have two houses. And I'm trying to ride this horse, before it throws me. Just a matter of time. And I'm trying to figure it out, right? And I'm thinking about this week. I'm like, well, if I sell this house, then my daughter doesn't have a place to live. And I shared this in prayer meeting. You know, if I have this house, I just try to make this house work. I know I could just make this house work, but I have this house. What am I going to do with my daughter? My daughter doesn't want to be here with me right now. My son's going to be going back to New York. My son needs a space here now. That's why I have a bigger house now. But he's leaving soon. He's going to go back to New York. He's going to need a place. So I'm going, in my mind, I'm worrying and thinking about all this stuff in my mind, and I've created it. And let me tell you, I would rather use the energy and all that's going on in my life for something that really matters. And my kids matter. I'm not saying they matter. We can worry about things, but it's not going to change it. It's not going to change anything. Worry doesn't keep me up. Most nights, as soon as my head hits the pillow, I'm gone. Because I'm like brain dead before I even get to my bed. But there are times that I fall into that. And I get distracted and upset about things that I'm not going to change because I'm distracted. You get it, right? So in closing, what we see in Matthew 6 is the things that we choose to worry about. Start checking these off your list, because I know that there's some things here you're going to say, yep, that's me. Because I can say, yep, that's me. He says, therefore, don't worry about your life. Kind of covers it all, kind of puts it all in there. Don't worry about your life. How many are worried about life today? Think about your aging. How many more days do I have on this planet? How am I going to die? Right? We're all worried about that, concerned about that. I mean, let me just kind of put your mind at ease today. You're all going to die. Feel better? We all are. But here's some good news. You know, to be absent from the body means I'm present with the Lord. That's going to be a really cool transition. Talk about an upgrade. New York, San Diego. Wow. Wonder what the weather will be like there. Better than here. How can it get any better? Because I'll be in the presence with Jesus. So you worry about life, right? You worry about life. What you're going to eat. What you're going to drink. Some of you are worrying about that right now. After church, where should we go? James preached a little long today, so we're not going to get in that restaurant. You worry about your food. You worry about what you're going to drink. You worry about what you're going to wear. You know? I had a different pair of pants on this morning before I put these on. Wild, won't we? Maybe once I know the people a little bit better. You know, you worry about things. What am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? What am I going to drink? Worry about your body. You know, is not life more than food? And the body more than clothes? Jesus says, will you look at the birds of the air? They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they are? Can one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Oh, but you can take one away. Why do you worry about your clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. So here's the takeaway. If this is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you? You of little faith. So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? You know what kind of people worry about these things? He says, for the pagans run after all these things. Not my kids, sons. They know I'm going to take care of them. This is how pagans live. How many of you want to live like a pagan? Want to identify yourself as a pagan? I'm going to worry about everything. I'm not going to trust God. He says, that's what pagans do. That's how pagans live. He says this, and this is a very, very popular verse. You've heard it said before. Matthew 6:33, it says, but seek ye first, right? Seek ye first. Seek first his kingdom. Seek first his righteousness. All these things will be given to you. All these things will be given to you. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about it. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Jesus said these words. Jesus told us again in John 16:33, in this world you're going to have all kinds of trouble. But don't lose heart. Don't throw in the towel. Don't worry about it. I've overcome the world. You're with me. You're with me. You're with me. It's going to be okay. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to forsake you. Don't need to worry about it. You're not going to change anything by worrying about it. Talk to me about it. Pray to me. Listen to me. Sit at my feet. Mary understood that. Mary's like, you know what? I'm seeking him first. Putting him first. Put my guest first. Everything else. Pretty sure Martha. Bow your head. Oh, help us, God, to choose worship over worry. We know what's better. We know that worry isn't going to change anything. Get all worked up and all out of sorts. Things that really, at the end of the day, don't even matter. You tell us it doesn't matter if we gain everything there's to gain in this world and then forfeit, lose our soul. Trying to gain it. But I pray that today we would just be so lost in you. We would just love you so much. We would desire to be with you, and that we would desire to be at your feet, that we would desire to learn and listen and grow and be all that you've called, all that you've created. For we know that the more time we spend with you, the more we're going to look like you, the more we're going to talk like you, the more we're going to take on the characteristics. Lord, I think about people throughout Scripture that got distracted, people who took their eyes off of you, worried, people who took things into their own hands. I think of Moses himself, who, it was pretty cool that he denied the riches and decided to be mistreated so that he could identify with the people of God. But I also think about Moses when he took matters into his own hands, when he struck a rock instead of speaking. Sometimes we try to take things in our own hands. Sometimes we try to act alone and don't trust you. Help us to trust you, not to worry. Sit at your feet. Go with us this day, we pray.